What's up, squad? It's Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, once again, this is why I say President Trump is one of my favorite presidents. It's because he gives so much geopolitical content. So, in one of his latest speeches, he attributes the current war in Ukraine and Russia to Saudi Arabia. And this is what I mean by it gives great content because a lot of leaders, they'll get up there, they'll do um, word salad, say fancy words, be very evasive, very indirect. Trump goes up and tell people straight up, say, look, we all know that Saudi Arabia, so the world's largest proven oil reserve is actually Venezuela, but Saudi Arabia is more integrated with global markets, and they're considered to have almost a fifth of the world's proven oil reserves. So, because of OPEC, which they're a strong player in, as well as being more integrated and not suffering as much sanctions or as ostracized as Venezuela, Saudi Arabia is and has always been the global swing oil producer. So, because of this, Saudi Arabia has the ability to flood markets with oil, and in doing so, lowering the price. Now, Russia, as Doug Casey once said, Russia is a wheat field with a gas station, is basically heavily driven by its natural resources. And one of those natural resources, obviously, is oil. So, because oil is such a critical resource for Russia, once the price on it drops, that margin, that profitability lowers, which will make the war in Ukraine a lot more expensive than it currently is now. And it will probably make Russia sad uncle in some degree. And Trump is using this threat, I'm assuming, to bring Russia to the bargaining table. Now, for this threat to have its way, it's important to understand the relationship of the United States and Saudi Arabia as well. The House of Saud, has ruled Saudi Arabia for some time now, but they took over the Saudi kingdom. And they did so, I'll say, complicit with Western support. It has been, we can say that the West, primarily the United Kingdom and Britain, has under underwritten the security of Saudi Arabia. Because of their support, Saudi Arabia has not had to really worry about outside threat. Remember, the whole purpose, or one of the contributing factors uh, for Saudi Arabia, was Americans had sent troops there, and there were troops on the Holy Land, which was offensive to some of the plotters because they had American troops in Saudi Arabia. But the American troops were there to protect Saudi Arabia from Saddam Hussein, who is obviously no longer in power. So America has guaranteed stability within that country, and from being Saudi Arabia being toppled by maybe some more of its more mature or political or militarily stronger neighbors. So in Trump eyes, as he says, we've done a lot for Saudi Arabia. Now Saudi Arabia usually do a quid pro quo where they buy a lot of expensive military equipment. They have one of the highest per capita military expenditures year on year on year, and a lot of those weapons come from the United States. But this is the difference between wealth and power. Saudi Arabia has money. America has power. And when those two go against each other, power trumps money. Money at the end of the day is just a medium of exchange, and that exchange only exists as long as the powerful allows it to exist. So, this being the case, Trump feels as though, and he even says in his speech, he says, you can tell how he operates because he's been priming the pump ever since probably the entire 4 years he's been out of office, but especially once he knew he was going to get elected, he was probably priming the pump, which is why that Israeli Gaza war ended so quickly, or the Israeli Gaza invasion ended so quickly, or aggression ended so quickly. You could say conflict. But Israel got it. Israel said, okay, let's end this when Trump get in office, because Trump kind of sounded a little annoyed that Saudi Arabia hasn't took the first step. What Saudi Arabia has been doing, I just saw they just passed a 600 billion investment, and he wants that 600 billion investment that actually goes up to $1 trillion, and in doing so, he's taking into account this discounted oil pricing, and it latches on to, it's a 2-for-1, right? Because he starts talking about lowering interest rates. So he say they need to lower the oil prices. Okay, oil prices is going to do two things, right? It's going to help America strategically bring Russia to the bargaining table with Ukraine, right? The second thing he did, and this is where he talks about with the lower interest rates, is that will lead to an economic boom. When you lower those interest rates, right, people are going to borrow more because rates aren't as high. And then you also have to take into account that people are going to invest more because they're not getting in return on their fixed yields. So the money has to go somewhere, and that money is going to go most likely into investments where people try to maintain the purchasing power of their currency. He said it will be a lower interest rate in America as well as globally, and this will lead to a boom. Now, that being the case, it will be a boom based off of political expediency. Obviously, the oil price is where it's at because OPEC and Saudi Arabia deem it to be most fitting to the market. So, if you was to push that interest rate lower prematurely, what could happen though is there would be a point where there would have a buildup of unhealthy economic behavior associated with this lower interest rates, which could lead to, we can say, overconsumption or overinvestment, such as um, a sugar high to some degree. People will take out too much money, or they'll unnecessarily burden themselves with that, and they may make because they feel the debt is so low. And then if something was to happen, you have a lending crisis, etc. There will be much harder for relief to occur because interest rates have already been in a very low place. But this sugar high, I think Trump is like, hey, if it happens, that's the next guy's problem. It's not my problem. So that's kind of the reason why interest rates aren't always low all the time. And they try to keep it more in line with the market performance and keeping the market going at a constant, steady um, pace, as opposed to trying to give it this sugar high, which can end, or an artificial high, which can end in disastrous outcomes such as a recession or even worse, a depression. So it was just really interesting to see Trump really come out hard at Saudi Arabia. He Saudi Arabia, for all its wealth, right? As I said, it's in between power and wealth. Saudi Arabia has been absolutely, outside of being a backer, a nuisance more or less, um, in various degrees. It has really not done much to drive the global situation or global development forward. And it's so many shady things that some people have linked to Saudi Arabian money, because they have oodles and oodles and oodles of the money, and it flows some places. Some places it's considered good, some places considered not so good. But this is Trump really holding their feet to the fire, saying, "Look, we're not going to let you guys just sit up here like spoiled princes, like you are, live luxury lifestyle, and not help me accomplish my agenda." So this relationship is going to be interesting, and it's going to be interesting because the question is why Saudi Arabia didn't, like Israel, acquiesce to Trump's demand immediately, given their precarious situation. So it's very, very interesting. We're going to continue to watch it. Love to hear your comments below. If you have any insider knowledge, or if there's other topics you wanted us to discuss on this channel, like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Back to up.